who you want me to be, so I'm lying my way from no turning back now. I wanna be pushed aside.
In the fitness industry, or as I like to call it, the muscle, technically bodybuilding, powerlifting, all this kind of stuff industry, comes a lot of like, this is right, this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong. No, actually, you're wrong, I'm right. I'm wrong, you're right. Bunch of, opinions everywhere. And people like to say, if you're doing like any sort of, 1 to like 5 reps, it's completely useless. Some people say 20 plus reps is completely useless. And in this video, I will be explaining that this is basically a bunch of rubbish, because your body will adapt in a certain way. Now, when it comes to lower rep ranges and the like very high rep ranges, of course you will have certain adaptations which may, correspond with either endurance or strength. And I'm a particular user of like, strength based sets. So like mainly, I think the lowest I'll go is 1 rep for my strength stuff, and the highest is 5. Now this not only like improves, my strength overall, but it will inherently promote hypertrophy. Same way as if I were to, do endurance reps, because endurance also requires muscle, which your body will produce if you give it that stimulus. And if you are just looking to build muscle, like I've said in my previous video, powerlifting also helped me gain muscle, which I think is vice versa with endurance stuff as well as that. Because, of course, I do MMA. Some of the lads that go to MMA want to look good, but also have the endurance, which, they should separate those kinds of things and just go, yeah, I'll do my hypertrophy sets, but I will also do my endurance sets, which is probably the best way to look at it. Because if you look at like, fighters and stuff, regardless of if you think they take drugs or not to, enhance themselves, they have pretty good physiques. I mean, compared to social media nowadays, sometimes it may not be the case, but they are pretty, muscular and everything. And that's no, complete coincidence that these people are muscular. Hell, even look at powerlifters. Most of the time, they're muscular too. You see runners, muscular, all this kind of stuff. Muscle does help in those instances. But research has shown, all the, rubbish about, the perfect rep range is still kind of a myth, because I can do, 10 reps. Doesn't mean anything, because I'm a person who, when I'm doing a specific exercise for hypertrophy, I go to failure. I push myself until I can't do anymore. And I feel like that's more for, me personally. I believe in that. And, certain people believe in 12 reps, but inherently you are leaving, a lot of reps on the table. If you are just doing 12 reps, you don't know what you're capable of. If you just aiming for the 12 reps and you somehow get 10, you're just going to beat yourself up. It's all down to, what do you want? What's your training style? Are you an intense person? Are you much a casual? Are you severely, I need to do this amount of reps? Are you a person who doesn't? But from my own experience, which this is genuinely my opinion, as long as you train hard to the point of failure or near failure, you will progress. And even in a strength and endurance standards, you still need to train to near failure where your body's like, oh shit, I need to adapt. Because if you keep doing the same weight over and over again, it's just going to be like, your body will be like, it's fine, I've dealt with this before. So just push yourself that extra bit. If you are looking for, fitness, as in, endurance and all that kind of stuff, do your 20 plus reps of, let's say, a push-up or pull-ups or whatever. But if you are looking for strength, do your, strength stuff. And because everyone wants to look good, do your hypertrophy sets, do stuff till failure, because, your body will only adapt if it's presented with a solid wall that it can't break through. And once it hits that wall and breaks through, there'll be another wall, and you still need to break through that. That's how I like to describe it. But anyway, this is week 3 on the road to, competition. And we'll get straight into it. It's the second part of the week. So, but please check out my previous video on, why powerlifting made me bigger and stronger, But anyway, we'll get into today's video. So starting off the, workout with 115 and then going to 105.5. These are tempo reps, so they're slow on the concentric and then, just normal on the, I think it's eccentric on the way down, eccentric, slow on the eccentric, and then, push up as normal. So essentially these just help with form and everything. And also, as a reason, I am not using my, like wrist wraps and stuff on these, just to build up my wrist stability. And, eventually I'll move to full, having nothing on in terms of, benching, just purely so I can eventually bench more, which is the whole goal. But yeah, moved on to 105 on the incline press, did it for 5 for 2 sets. Felt pretty good. Of course, had a buddy of mine spot me on a bit of the movement. So it's always great to have a spotter, especially when you're going for heavier weights. Although most of the time I train by myself, it's always good to have somebody there to spot you as well, make jokes and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, all that benching out of the way, couldn't get on a cable because he's breaking. So essentially we did dumbbell fly, which you can see here. It isn't my favourite version, but with a dumbbell fly you have to really accentuate the stretch portion, because stretch is where the most tension is. When you go up there's less tension. It's kind of like why I do not like certain dumbbell exercises, because they really it's kind of mid. So like a cable gives you constant tension throughout the movement, it's constant, whatever weight you have. Meanwhile dumbbells, it's all relying on gravity being that, in this case doesn't really provide that much tension. Like, yeah, sure, I can, stretch at the bottom, but what about the top? I need that tension in order to grow. Now, before people start spewing saying, oh, but Arnold did it. Arnold, did it with steroids. I'm not on steroids. I'm very much natural, if you couldn't bloody tell. And essentially, it's my preferred way of lifting. Like Arnold used to do thousands of sets per day. Meanwhile, Mike Menzer, who in theory beat him in his, last Olympia win, because, of course the judges gave it to him.
But yeah, that's probably why I'm not going into bodybuilding, because it's a bunch of guys in speedos, and yeah, it's just not my kind of thing, because it's all subjective and very corrupt, bodybuilding. So at least with powerlifting you can literally just say, well, this guy, you know, lifted more, therefore he wins. It's not all about, you know, corruption with powerlifting. But anyway, after doing chest, of course we go on to the shoulders, which a single arm lateral raise is how we decided to do it, because there was only one available. I mean, when it comes to situations like this, you just go and adapt, because yeah, I could have just binned it off like some people, but you gotta find, you know, certain ways around things, because literally you will have those times where, you know, some cable is taken up and you can't do the exercise you want to, so the next best thing is probably the next best thing.
No, yeah, come on.
So like, say if there was no
This used to
cable
be
for,
science-based lifting
let's say,
styles.
10 minutes,
But then it was like, no.
I'd probably
And then
gone
we
on
evolved.
to, you know, dumbbell lateral raise with a
We got
chest
smarter
support,
with some knee.
just to provide more tension. And
Put chippy on it.
yeah, that's literally how my mind works, you know, because yes, would I prefer absolute perfection in every, you know, circumstance? Yes. But oftentimes you do not get to that perfect circumstance, therefore you have to just suck it up and just go with it, because I would really like to do, you know, both sides, because I feel it a lot better, but this is better than nothing, which I can safely say. And the general advice I'd give to any of you, if you are a person who's chronic about certain exercises, as long as it's a very similar exercise, you don't have to worry, you'll target it in the same way, because funnily enough, you know, lateral raise, fairly simple, you know, it's in one direction, there's not really much you can adapt to it, and it still does it to an extent, just depends how you feel it, you know, kind of thing. But yeah, just all down to you, really. So next we'll be going on to the triceps, which I do a cross body tricep extension with both sides sometimes, only when it is, you know, fairly quiet, which most of the time when I'm doing a push day it is fairly quiet. But today, of course, cable broken and all that kind of stuff, I just decided, well, I might as well just use one side, because yeah, we're not wanting to be selfish, but it's quite busy. So you know, I just decided to stick to one. But yeah, when it comes to triceps, I'm more focused on the lateral head, just because it's the bigger muscle in the tricep, and also very importantly stimulate the kind of the bigger muscles in said muscle group. Because say if I were to try and target the medial head, that's incredibly hard to do, but it's the smaller head of the tricep, which means it wouldn't show as much, which of course, yes, I am a powerlifter, but I do want to look good, which, you know, will constantly change, because I feel like the bigger you get, the more critical you get of yourself, which I look back at photos of myself and everything like that, and I just think how far I've come, because I used to look like a twig. So at least, you know, I've seen the effort that I've been able to put in, because trust me, that these arms may be either big to you or small to you, but I've put a load of effort into them, and they've, you know, made insane progress. Because I can tell you this, I remember not even having, you know, any visible muscle. It was just like, you know, pure twig, and it wasn't really a great feeling, you know. I didn't really go to the gym because I got bullied. I went to the gym just purely because, you know, I felt inspired by one of my mates to go to the gym, and and then it became my own thing. So yeah, essentially I was like, it kind of called to me in a weird way, you know, at the time and everything. So then I grew to enjoy it, and then here recording videos on the internet and posting them online, which is a great origin story for the Willpower guy. But we're going to be moving on to tricep pushdown, which you're probably thinking, what does this target? This targets more of the long head, which is the second biggest, which of course out of three, you have your lateral head, your long head, and then you have your medial head, which is the typical names of the tricep, which they have a lot longer names with a bunch of Latin mixed into it. So, and also I'm very bad at pronouncing things, so I'm not going to even attempt to pronounce the scientific name of the tricep and all its muscles and everything, but essentially it's more or less the pushing muscle of the tricep, which is the push down kind of thing. Because if you were to almost do a push down right now and extend your arm, you're more or less going to feel it in your long head and a bit of your lateral head, because it's the most dominant and biggest muscle in the tricep. But this more or less targets the big bit on the outer side of triceps. But by combining this, I'm able to increase tricep volume and all that kind of stuff, which I think is slowly working. So that's at least something. Now to the posing. You can see, arms are looking alright. Forearms still need work, but we'll get onto that in just a few minutes. But anyway, pause squats with 180 because I was feeling a bit confident. They felt okay. They didn't feel bad or anything. They just felt pretty mid. Probably because this was in the morning. I think either in the morning or in the afternoon. But usually with leg day, stuff like pause squats can be a bit taxing. So I also just try my best to get my form right and everything, because it is a light day technically. I'm not going hard, so I have enough energy for the coming week, which after this one I'll be doing 210, which I did do 210, and it felt pretty good. It's just my deadlifts are feeling pretty shit, so I'm trying to figure out ways to increase my deadlift and, try and get cues and all this kind of stuff, because it's been stagnated for a year. So, a year or more. I think a year. Over a year, but it'll all come with due time, because, my squats increase, so does my deadlift. So we'll have to see at competition. But anyway, stiff leg deadlifts, just to get hamstrings and posterior chain working, but also it helps with back pain. I find with this, sometimes I have a bit of a muscular back pain, and I just find stiff leg deadlifts kind of get rid of it for the week, and then it helps really. But anyway, moving on to quad extensions before the split squats, just purely because, to get in short positioned, your quad, which quadricep involves 4 muscles, which the main extender muscle, which you'll be using here, is the rectus femoris, which extends like the knee, and it's kind of like the middle muscle, which you'll see if you are lean enough. It's kind of like that middle muscle that just extends your knee, as well as it's like the teardrop muscle extends your knee as well. So, but that's more for like pushing, which, you know, muscles work together to move you through, you know, space. So it's just how muscles work, really. But quad extensions are a staple of, you know, leg days, and I always say I don't really use, you know, machines, but with leg day I do use machines, because there's certain positions you can only get with like machines, and I feel like most leg machines are okay when it comes to, you know, my leverages. Meanwhile, let's say a machine preacher curl, I always find my, you know, arm is too long or too short to actually, you know, get anything out of it, and it just felt really shit in terms of you know, trying to build your biceps. Hence why I do, you know, dumbbell preacher curls instead, also because we don't have one here. But, you know, I find those certain machines just to be insanely rubbish, because they do not have that freedom to adapt to your, like, you know, body kind of thing. So, but luckily enough, even though this is Techno Gym, I'm able to pull the seat back, I'm able to adjust where the pad is on my, you know, shin, and that just helps perfectly. Also, I'm getting quite strong on this, so, you know, that's a sign of progression. I really need progression with legs, because if you haven't seen my legs or, you know, anything, you can see them right here. They're not the biggest at all, but I do try my best to, you know, make them bigger, make them stronger, but most of the time, you know, I feel like I've just got chicken leg strength, whereas like my legs are small, but they've got an insane amount of strength, which hopefully will change, where I will also be strong, but also got some pretty decent legs, because all these guys saying, oh, why do you train legs? It'll just make it look smaller. If it's already small, why the fuck should I care? So, stop being a bitch and saying, oh, you'll train legs because you make my winky look small. It's already small, mate. Just admit. But anyway, split squats, because we ain't no pussies around here. Because I feel like split squats for me, I'm able to get deeper than a leg press, and that's why I do it. And you can see, you know, I go fairly deep and everything. I go as deep as I can before hitting the floor. So it's just to, you know, also open up the hips as well under tension, because what I found with you know, having an injury in my hip flexor is that, you know, split squats do help with you know, opening up the hips, strengthening the hip flexors and everything. Because even the back foot in this game works, so like, you know, you're stretching out the hip while going down on the other leg. So, you know, it just helps with that as well. But also, yes, it is a Smith machine, but also if you need to do it like, let's say, free weight, it helps with you know, balance and everything, which is always good. But yeah, I'll be doing my first drop set on the split squats, which you know, was a bit, I felt very bad, you know, to put it lightly, because, you know, it was just suffering, because yes, I'll admit, you know, split squats are hard. It's just like, you know, you need to get through them and everything, which, yeah, the unfortunate part, you know, wanting some bigger legs and stronger legs, is that you have to, you know, just think of different ways to torture yourself, because I think for men, leg days are a lot worse because, you know, I don't know. I just feel, you don't see many women like genuinely go, with you know, leg day, but see a lot of men really suffer on a leg day. So you never know. But after this, I went on to adductors, which adductors are very important because even if you're going for a stage, they do make your, you know, leg look bigger because it's the muscle on your inner thigh, and the only real isolation movement you can really do is adductors to stimulate them, which can be a bit, you know, awkward for some people because, yeah, flexibility can be a problem, but this also does help with flexibility because it's pushing your legs outwards. I'm lucky enough that I'm, you know, slightly above average flexibility on this thing. I've seen people be practically, you know, only a foot apart on the two pads, and it's like you barely get any range of motion with that. Meanwhile, me, I'm just trying to go as far as I can, and you know, you can see on my face I'm really enjoying this, and you know, make sure my hands are helping me until the last second, just so I can, you know, purely focus on it and, you know, stimulate them as much as I can. Although abductors, which are, you know, essentially glutes, your outer, you know, bits, I don't really train those at the moment just purely because I feel like I've already got a big enough arse already, so, you know, it's not really my goal to have a massive dump truck. So, yeah. But if my abductors get really shit, then yeah, I will be doing the bad girl machine or whatever. But, yeah. Literally that, and then moving on to hamstring curl. Of course, the worst hamstring curl you can get, but I do my best with what I've been given. You know, I wish they would, you know, change it, but unfortunately, this chain of gyms are kind of broke. So you know, getting new equipment in is kind of a big ask. But it's always good to see that, you know, people still try even though the equipment can be a bit bad. I mean, I've seen way worse gyms than this, so, you know, and plus it's only 20 quid a month for me, so it's fairly cheap anyway in comparison to some gyms where it's like, how can you even charge that amount? Why? Because you got like sauna and steam room. Doesn't really matter about the sauna and steam room. If you're gonna buy a gym membership, then it should be just a, you know, 20 quid. For certain ones, it's like, what's the bother? But yeah, after leg day, we'll be moving on to a pull day, which starts off with bench press, because the more you bench, the more you're gonna bench, is how a lot of powerlifters will put it. Because I bench 3 times a week, my mate benches 4 times a week, and he finds 4 times a week way better, which for me, I've never tried 4 times, but that's purely because I just don't have the time, you know. I don't have the time in my day to do 4 times, because I feel like my workouts are already, like, you know, long as it is, and I don't want them to be longer. So yeah, just try and you know, do it where I can, which doing tempos, like I said, helps with form, but also, you know, that little strength increase when you're lowering it down, providing more tension enables you to, you know, push yourself a bit more. but yeah, I find it work for me particularly, because I have a just overall form kind of weakness. I don't have a upper body weakness, I don't have a lower body weakness when it comes to bench press. It's just like form and everything, so hence why I've stuck with tempos for a long time, just pure tempos on my, lower weight days and all that kind of stuff, so it just helps in the end. But anyway, moving on to lat pull down to start off, the hypertrophy on the back. Just purely because how I like to put it is, with certain body parts you have ones that involve your limbs, so like mainly upper body. So like to really get the benefits out of doing lats, you need your arms to also assist by doing a lat pull down, and then you have one that's strictly just lats, which is the lat pullover, which is the next exercise. Same with chest, so you have your presses, and then you have your flies. Similar with glutes for the one woman that's watching. You have hip thrusts, and then you have donkey kicks or whatever, where you're just using the glute itself after a press or before the press. It's up to you how you want to work now, because I feel like I do not want my arms to take over, so I do, the one that involves my arm the most, and then I go on to one that doesn't involve my arms much. So that's just my kind of like thought pattern around, certain training, because of course I'm just trying to, just stimulate the lats. I'm not trying to stimulate anything else. So I just find this kind of like thought pattern of training just helps us a lot when it comes to my lat development, because I've seen quite a bit of development on my lower lats because of this kind of order of improving lats and everything. But I'm at 3.5 years anyway of training, which progress tends to slow down, but I am still trying to push myself as far as I can go, because I feel like people just like slowly get complacent with their training, and then just don't train as hard, which is a bummer. But anyway, with traps, with my upper traps, I don't feel like I need any work on them, which would be, like, say if my traps were kind of shit, I'd do shrugs as well as, cable rows. But I feel like this cable row and, a T-bar row are probably the golden bits for traps. It's just we don't have a T-bar row in this gym, so I have to deal with just, doing this. But I really like a T-bar row. Certain ones are like very nice. There's this like,
How you doing, buddy? Are you alright?
it's a very basic one. It looked like it was made in the back of the gym, but exact proportions, very great. And, just felt amazing. So it's just a shame we don't have one here, because they'll probably say it's just not that kind of gym. It's a leisure centre gym. There's leisure centre gyms with T-bar rows and hack squats. It's like, but I do get the kind of rope, kind of like me. But yeah, after cable, rows, we'll be moving on to preacher, and then incline curls. Now, with biceps, I like to put it into two sections. So you have one that's out in front of you and one behind you. Now, in certain instances, of course, I can't get onto, a bench, let's say, but, I try and do two bicep exercises to make sure I get the volume in, but also, you know, I target my bicep at different angles because this preacher curl is more or less targeting my long head, which, you know, is putting that position of being in the front, which tends to be where the long head takes over. Yeah, again, this is just theory, a gym theory. Say, if you are old enough to know what that reference is from, you are an OG and you deserve respect. If you are not, you are just a Pokemon little wanker. But anyway, back onto what I was saying. Essentially, it's just like targeting your muscle from different angles enables it to, you know, grow. Because there are two heads in the bicep, meaning they get stimulated and in different ways because they are, you know, structured in that way to be stimulated in different states. So like, say if you're dragging something from behind you, you will be using your bicep in an isometric tension.
Just got sent an email.
Or if you're picking something up, you'll be using your bicep to pick that thing up in like, you know, a pickup motion and also isolate tension. If you are, you know, just picking up and moving it. Like, it's how your body's structured biologically and your biomechanics. The whole reason your body is structured like that is because of those functions. Because, you know, we need to move around, we need to pull things, we need to do all sorts of things. And yeah, bodies haven't really changed. For a long time, we've had the same similar muscle insertions and everything like that. It's just over centuries we got, you know, progressively more advanced. And instead of hunting, you know, a bunch of mammoths, we're lifting weights in a building.
Dream physique, right?
What time to be alive, you know, best time to be alive, people. So, I'm grateful. Now for this session, I don't believe I had enough time to do forearms because I need to get to work.
Cut.
So, yeah, I just decided,
Nice
screw it.
ride.
I need to go home,
Mean weight.
get changed,
And
go
I
work.
need to get down to 90.
So, yeah, finish off with incline curls. Usually I do
I haven't lost
forearms,
much
but
strength
there you go,
anyway, so.
you know, sometimes it cannot be done.
Second at
But,
least.
you know, I try my best. But anyway, that's all from me today. Look at the at the end, if you so please.
What do I do
And
now?
yeah, thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I'll see you
Another
next
Chris.
one. Goodbye.
Flat Chris.
That press, I stood dumbbell.